Hey everybody, welcome to Simply Cyber, the video channel series that helps you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. We've got a great live stream today. It's a bit renegade style. I'm really happy. We're going to be doing an interview of a guest, much like we normally do, but today I will be in the hot seat and Josh Mason, who I'll be bringing on in just a minute here, will be our host. I'm super excited. Thank you so much for the support of the channel. I've been getting a lot of good feedback on both YouTube and LinkedIn. So I sincerely appreciate that. If you're interested in Simply Cyber, check out the videos we have on the YouTube channel, because we're basically trying to help everybody and anybody who's interested in having a career in cybersecurity get all the resources, all the access, all the connections that they possibly could need. So let's jump in and bring over Josh. Come on in here, Josh. There you are. Let's make this look right.
Hey,
there
Jerry.
You are. So welcome, Josh. Thank you so much for being here today. So just for those of you who don't know, Josh reached out to me. He and I have been connecting on LinkedIn for a little while. We're actually working on a really cool project that's probably going to be coming out in May and June that's targeted for veterans and military folks in the cybersecurity community. So if that's you, reach out to me after this live stream and we can chat it up. But so Josh and I have been working, and Josh was like, hey, man, you've got a lot of great guests on your channel and stuff like that, but people probably be interested in what your story is. And I've never really turned the mic around on me. So I was interested in doing this. So I've decided to take Simply Cyber and hand the wheel, if you will, over to Josh. So I am out of control. I'm always out of control, but I'm really out of control today. And Josh, the floor is yours. So I officially pass the mantle over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Jerry. Quick intro of myself. I was a Air Force C-130 pilot. I graduated from the Air Force Academy about a decade ago, and a little more than that now. Flew C-130s for a while, and then switched over to cyber warfare back in 2016. I got out of the military at the end of 2019, and I now teach as a contractor to the military cybersecurity, mostly offensive cyber and a little bit of defensive. And I'm also working with veterans in mentoring capacity and as associate instructor for With You With Me, part-time. I've connected with Jerry because I think we both have the same vision. And when you have your own show, you don't get to talk about yourself. So I was like, hey, Jerry, I want to hear your story. I think everyone else does too. And I knew you weren't going to be like, hey, this is a show about me. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to bring that to the people.
Absolutely. So, I'm looking forward to it. And just so everybody knows, I don't know what we're going to be talking about today. I don't know where Josh is taking this. Hopefully there wasn't too much OSINT digging done to uncover any kind of embarrassing stories and such. But I'm gonna try to do the best I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. So we're working with a lot of people who are transitioning into cyber or who are coming into cyber from a traditional high school or college background. What brought you to cybersecurity? Because you went the fairly traditional route of computer science degree and then into the industry, right?
Yeah, that's right. So for those of you who don't know, I do have computer science background. That was my undergrad and a master's I got in computer science. And when I went to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst between 99 and 2003. And when I went through that program, cybersecurity wasn't even really a thing, right? Like in the military space, I bet you there was a lot of cybersecurity talk. There was the Rainbow books and stuff like that. But it wasn't really a commercialized skill set, right? It was something that augmented network engineers, sysadmins, and whatnot. So when I went through my computer science program, literally, I was built to think that all you could do is become a software engineer. Like when I studied networking, it was so you could make applications talk together. When I studied databases, it's so you could store data for applications. So I thought you become a software engineer. So I actually graduated, became a software engineer, and just kind of went that route. Now, here's the best part. Maybe like a year and a half into my work, 2 years into my work, I was working for the Marine Corps, and they came in and audited my code. Deloitte, actually, like a contractor, came in and audited my code. And I'm a fairly proud guy. And I thought my code rocked. Like it was definitely slick. It definitely did the requirements. It had a couple bells and whistles. And I got a really poor score on the review. And I said, come on, let me talk to these Deloitte people. What are you talking about with your suits, right? Because I'm I'm a developer at this point, so I'm not wearing a suit or anything. I'm like, hoodie and what? And they're like, no. We reviewed it from a security perspective, and we looked at your logging, we looked at your auditing, we looked at your authentication options, we looked at your how you're passing cookies and session tokens around, and like you're doing everything wrong. And I was like, wait, whoa. Like, you need a username and password to get in here. What's the problem? And they kind of like uncovered to me like what security is. And this is just from a web app perspective, right? This isn't even like the world of security. But based on that one audit, that one event, I was like bit. I said, oh my God, like this is a thing. So I actually had a phone call with this guy, Ray Lester. I'll never forget it. And he was some guy who worked at the company I worked at, and he worked in security. I like went through the GAL, right? This is classic security work, right? So I want to know more. I go in the GAL, I look at different roles, I find someone, I email them, and I'm just like, hey, like I'm a guy, I'm 23, like let's talk. And I said, dude, can you please explain to me what this field is? And he's like, oh, like he tells me about like pen testing first, right? Because the sexiest thing we got. And I'm like, hold on, you get paid to do that? And he's like, oh yeah, it's a whole thing. I was like, all right, I gotta know everything. So I immediately turned and started working on I got a job doing InfoSec work. I went back to school, got a master's in information assurance, which having a computer science background certainly facilitates being able to move a little bit quicker, in my opinion, in the field of cybersecurity.
Sure.
But I went and got, formal education. I just was drinking it up. And, I basically pivoted into security. There's a couple of different on-ramps that people have into security. My particular on-ramp was audit. So, I basically, consulting and audit, but I was working in an audit capacity doing SOX auditing, right? So if you guys remember Enron and Tyco and all that crap, like once they like basically screwed over the SEC and a lot of shareholders, SEC came in and said all of a sudden this thing called Sarbanes-Oxley and general controls. It's more around the managing of financials, but there's a whole IT piece to it, right? And they needed people to do IT auditing. And I was like, all right, that sounds cool. Let me get some of that. So I started doing that. And it was fine. It was paying the bills, but it wasn't really the security that I wanted, right?
Yeah.
And just to share a personal story about how I broke in, right? So I'm living with my girlfriend, now my wife, at the time in Massachusetts, and we have a dog. I take the dog for a walk, and I go a different path than I normally do, and I walk by this like, one of these mill buildings that's been repurposed into like mixed use kind of stuff. And there's a little sign out front that says TBG security, like Tango Bravo Golf security. Now, it could have been like home security. I don't know. But I was like, oh my God, like this is cool. So I literally walk in with my dog into TBG security, walk up the stairs. It ends up being a 2-guy firm. One is like a pen tester, like super tech guy, Dennis Calderoni. I know him to this day. The other guy is tech, but more the business side, Frank Murphy. And I walk in with my dog, this 25-year-old guy at this time, maybe 26. Like, can I help you? I said, hey, I'm here for security. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I need to know everything. I'm addicted to it. Like I said it in a more like less psychotic way. But
Sure.
Yeah, so we spent an hour together. I asked them a million questions. They, thanked me for stopping by, sent me on my way. And like a month later, they called me and they're like, hey, we just picked up a new client with Avant Pan, the bakery up in Boston. And we could use a junior guy to help facilitate the senior guy. You want to get in? And I said, hell yeah. So I quit my job. I went with TBG Security and I took off from there, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that does lead to one of my questions and one of my suggestions to most people is how do you get a cybersecurity job? Or an entry-level cybersecurity job?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got a different story. I feel like, it's kind of funny because it's such a juxtaposition between saying that there's a million unfilled jobs, yet no one can get a job today. Whereas when I got into the field, like there was like no jobs and there was no opportunity, there was no education and stuff like that. So even though people might be watching this feed and they're struggling to like break into the industry, I assure you, like the opportunities and the resources that are available to you right now far exceed what it was when I broke in and I was able to do it. So, you know, everybody's got a different story. I mean, I really feel like you've got your, you know, higher education, your certification, and then your like home lab project experience. Those are basically the three kind of ways that you can get experience, right? So if you don't know this yet and you're watching this and you want to break into the field, there's three ways to do it. You do home labs, projects, stuff like that. You get certifications, entry level, like Security Plus, SSCP, maybe EJPT, depending where you want to go. And then higher ed. Now, higher ed is, we could do a whole show on higher ed, Josh, because higher ed is sliding out of favor hardcore because it takes a long time. It's wicked expensive. And your return on investment, people are getting savvy now about what their investment costs, not just financial, but time.
Yeah.
and with things like Udemy and Pluralsight and even like Cyber Mentor's building his thing up, there's a lot of stuff, right? So I would say you'd have to do a blend of all of them, right? You definitely want to get your foundationals and your fundamentals in place. And the last thing I'll say just about getting your first job in cybersecurity, and I can't emphasize this enough, this might be the most important thing I say on this broadcast. You have to network. I'm sorry if you're introverted. I'm sorry. You have to lean into it, man, and try to network. There is a thing called the hidden job market, and it's a real thing. And in cybersecurity, it's a very real thing. And the hidden job market is basically about 50% of jobs. That's a pretty accurate, but I mean, it's fairly rough, but it's pretty close. 50% of cyber jobs are never posted. You will not find it on LinkedIn or Monster or Dice or any of that stuff. You won't find it because what happens is I have a position to hire and I know Josh, and I know Josh is good at his job because you know, we've met at DEF CON a couple years in a row. We've talked about his work. I know what he does, and I know that he can do the job I need him to do. So I will call Josh first. I know it's not fair, but this is what happens, right? It's called the hidden job market. I just took a new job. I started a new job on Monday, literally Monday. The job was not posted. I had a phone call with the CIO before to talk about it as an opportunity. And then it was posted, but I applied, but like I'd already done everything, right? And I got introduced because of a connection that I had developed in the past, and that connection had developed it with this guy. So there is a real relevance to networking. I can't emphasize it enough. So much to the point, Josh, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'd love to hear them. That like you could be like when you're building out an RPG character or whatever, and you could do like 10 agility, 10 dexterity, 10 strength, right? You can max out everything, like 10 nerd, 10 pen tests, 10 defense, whatever, maxed out. And then you got another person who's like 6s down the row. If the 10 doesn't know about the opportunities and the network that has the opportunity doesn't know about the 10, they will hire the 6 because that's what they know and they trust it. And it's just, there's a million things around it, right? Like when you post a job, you have to go through HR, you have to do a million interviews, you got to negotiate, you got to do all these things. And it's just human nature. You're looking for the fastest way to solve your problem so you can move on to the next problem.
To put it in cyber terms, it's risk mitigation and return on investment. I can accept a 6. I can work with a 6. There's a chance we can upgrade a 6 to a 10 if they're showing the right potential. And if I trust that 6, and I don't have to go through the hoops of waiting weeks, months, all that HR has to do, all the interviews. If we have someone, we can interview them and they're good. Why not? Right? From the company side, why wouldn't we do that? And that's the mindset that so many companies have. That's the mindset that your new employer had. That's the mindset that my boss had. That's how I got my job. I saw someone got a position at a company. It related to something I had seen in work I was doing as a intern for 6th Gen. And I reached out. I said, hey, I noticed your team did this great work. I'm doing this. if you need anyone to build out courseware at this new position that you've got, let me know. Love to talk. 2 days later, I get a, hey, you've been recommended by Patricia, who's amazing, for a job. And I was like, I don't know who Patricia is. I had to talk to Al. Al barely knows who I am. I think he does now. But 2 days later, I had an interview. They're like, you're teaching? You know all this stuff? I was like, sure. They're like, can you talk about TCP/IP? I was like, yeah. Can you do Wireshark in front of people? And I was like, sure. That's not hard. Like, all right, cool. Can you come up to Maryland? I was like, let's do it.
Exactly.
And that's how I got this job.
And it's not that the hidden job market, it's not, I want to be clear too, that it's not nepotism or spoil system where it's like, oh, like a good old boys network where like, I'm going to give my unqualified nephew this job. It's just, you build a network, you know people who are quality and can do the job that you need them to do. And you reach to them first, because why go with an unknown commodity when you can go with a known commodity that can serve your purpose? And Josh, you made a wonderful point, which I wholeheartedly endorse. I had a conversation with one of my students earlier today. Like, I can teach you Wireshark, right? I can teach you what TCP/IP is. I can't teach you to be hungry. I can't teach you to have initiative. I can't teach you to want to get up and come to work with the right attitude. Like, you bring that, and we'll get you the skills I need you to do to crush it here, right? It's not a question of that. And that's really what I was saying too earlier about all this opportunity, man. Like this channel, Simply Cyber, and what Hackersploit's doing, with me, like there's so many resources out there. Differ Diva has got some. Stefan Waldvogel, who's in the audience right now, he's putting content out. I mean, there's just so much content that it's not about access to the content anymore. It's about, like, the onus has been pushed onto the individual. Do you actually want it, or do you just want to, like, is it more about like, oh, I don't have access to it, so I can't do it? But in reality, like, you didn't want to do it, right? So it's pushed onto to the individual now, and I love it, because the people who want it, much like I wanted it, are being given the opportunity to strive. And I love it. I love it. Like, there's so many people that I've encountered through Simply Cyber that are crushing life because of cybersecurity and because of all these resources. It's awesome. Not every time, but many times that someone successfully crushes their first interview or gets their first job, like specifically when they're breaking in, I love to share it with the community, because it's so awesome to just welcome another person into our community.
Oh yeah, and it's huge. There's so many videos out there now that I can't keep up. Like John Hammond will put something out, Cybermentor will put something out, Cyber and Security. They're streaming almost every day. Like I can't keep up with that. There's Network Chuck, there's David Bomball, there's KevTech, Zach Hill. Oh my gosh, like there's just not enough time to get all the stuff that's out there.
Where you can actually choose like your own niche now, and like, oh, I want to be a pen tester. So now, like, the other guys are all good, but I have a corpus of enough content just in the field I want, like not the field, but the specific niche in the field, that there's enough to consume there. You know, we're really progressing as an industry, man, as a field.
Yeah. So, okay. Then my question becomes, you were trying to figure out how to get into cyber years ago back in Massachusetts. Now, like, if you were starting fresh, say you came from same age, came from a whole different industry, you were coming into cyber, knowing what you know about the industry, what kind of role would you want to jump into fresh, and how would you go about it?
When you say same age, are you saying, so like, I'm a 41-year-old guy right now.
Say Jerry Auger, yeah.
41-year-old? Like, I work in like marketing, and I want to pivot into cyber.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So my advice, it's more of a methodology, because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. But I get asked this question quite a bit. So as far as like the ideal role, I would suggest there's really three that I think has the most available opportunity with the most available resources that has the biggest like kind of entry level break-in point, right? Those three are pen tester, SOC analyst, and IT auditor. Those are the three, right? Now, what I will say is the reason I choose these is because pen testing has really a well-established career path, and education and certifications, and the industry has really accepted certain certifications as career milestones. So like it used to be like 10 years ago, well, EJPT is kind of like an entry level one, and maybe OSCP is like the career one. Just so people know, like 10, 15 years ago, it used to be Sec Plus CISSP. Like that was your career path. Like if you got Sec Plus, it meant you were ready for entry level. When you got CISSP, it meant you were like mid-level and could go like, they could let the reins off you and you could run free range and kind of go where you wanted. I mean, that's still, they're still relevant, but again, these fields, these individual niches now have their own individual career path because there's so much professional, so much material and stuff like that. So with the pen testing one, I like that one for the 41-year-old marketing Jerry, because it's a clear path. Like if you have the motivation and you have the self-discipline to sit down, lay out a plan, execute on the plan, and you can have measurable milestones where you can say, I've done this, I've done this. And when you're applying for pen testing jobs, like those certs carry a lot of gravity. I mean, you obviously have to be able to demonstrate the skill, but that's the best part about these certs. Most of them are practical based. They're not like, you know, multiple choice questions. They're like, here's a box, break it. Here's a network, hack into it. Here's a wireless network, you know, get the key. Like you have to demonstrate capability. So I like pen testing, right? So that's one. IT audit, I also like that one because I actually feel like IT audit, it's like in my opinion, and I did come up this way, I do have a computer science background, but for non-technical people who are trying to like, you know, pull up their pants and like wade into the waters of cybersecurity, if you're intimidated by the IT element of it, audit is an excellent way to get into it, because with an audit, there's a standard and it lays it all out and tells you exactly what you're supposed to be looking for. And anything that you don't know about, you can Google that keyword. You have to put in the time before you get to the job, right? You can't show up for an audit and be like, I don't know what this means, but why don't you tell me, person I'm auditing? But you, like, everything's laid out for you to like self-educate, inform, lay out your audit standard. You won't be asked to do really anything outside of the major scope. And it's like, it's relatively Boolean. There is a nuance to that where like if the control, for example, the control that you're auditing says must have multi-factor authentication, right? And the sysadmin says, we require 2 passwords, right? So like a trained person might say, well, that it's really something you have, something you are, something you know, and you're giving me 2 of the same thing. So that doesn't really count as multi-factor, right? So you could have some deficiencies there, but by and large, like 90% of your time, you're going to be able to execute the IT audit function against a standard like FISMA or PCI or SOX or whatever the standard is today. You can execute that and it'll get you exposed to technology. It'll get you exposed to the people. It'll get you exposed to security standards. And then like after 2 years, 3 years of doing that, you'll know the lingo. You'll be comfortable enough with the IT. I don't expect you to sit down and write a bash program, right? No one's got that misunderstanding. But you'll be comfortable enough to be able to then pivot within the industry. And by the way, you've got 3 years of experience in the industry in this scenario, right? So that's another great one and really specialized for non-IT people. The third one I said was SOC analyst, right? Now this one, blue team SOC analyst, this one doesn't really have a lot of certs associated with it, just so people know. Blue gets a lot of love. People say SOC analyst. It's actually like the most popular keyword on Simply Cyber. And it gets a lot of love, but it's more about like understanding kind of the tools and the mindset. And I only say it because there's so many organizations that are desperate right now to invest in cybersecurity, and having visibility on their organization is how they think that they're going to get that cybersecurity, right? Like I could go on and on about why that's not the best first step, but that's a philosophical thing. But they're hiring, right? So there's a ton of jobs. There's a huge career path that's very well established, like SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, SOC manager, detection engineer. Like, again, you're looking for that career path. in those, the red team and the blue team instances. So I feel like those three are really excellent options for someone who's not IT trying to pivot into it, right? Each has a little bit higher degree of difficulty. And if you're going to work in cyber, like realistically, if you're going to work in marketing of cyber, that's different. But if you're going to work in cyber, you do have to get your feet wet with some basic things like networking, OSI stack, and maybe how an operating system works at some level. Like you don't need to understand page swaps and stuff, but you do need to understand like you have to understand what like RAM is and like why it pushes, instructions onto a processor, and like what hardware architecture kind of looks like at like a 90,000 foot level. But yeah, so that was a long answer, Josh, for what 41-year-old non-cyber guy Jerry is going to do if he wants to execute. Oh, and I'll just leave one final thing with that. Choosing which of those three paths, if you're in the audience and that's you, and choosing which of the three paths, you really have to go to the buffet or get a poo-poo platter, like a sampler platter, and take a bite of each of those three things to see if it actually resonates with you. Don't just lean into it because I told you it. Like they're very different. They have very different pros and cons, I assure you. But if you just take a little taste and try it, you'll know which one of those is right for you, and then you can just go full steam. I would encourage you. You didn't ask me this, but one of the biggest mistakes I feel a lot of people make who aren't in the industry is not having the context that different things apply to different things. Meaning, if you take like an EJPT study thing, and then you're looking at audit, and then you're looking at like what secure architecture is, and then you're looking at what PCI standards are, like you're all over the map. Nothing is going to kind of correlate with each other, and you're going to be frustrated like this industry is too big. You need to focus on the specific path that you want, and you will see that everything starts to intervolve with each other, and you're going to have a much more pleasant career journey, I assure you.
Yeah, highly agree. So I'm seeing some of the chats. I'm noticing some people I know. And we're kind of hitting on some of you mentioned some things that Neil actually talked about last night.
Oh, did he? I didn't see a stream last night. But by the way, security and cyber security.
Cyber insecurity.
Yeah, cyber insecurity. It's great. I forgot the name of it, but I do watch it. It's just Neil.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Neil and Philip and the team, they got a good system going on. But like this morning, they did a SysP thing, which is awesome. But do you consider GRC a decent path? That's a good one that I was also wondering about. So, governance, risk, and compliance, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And again, here, this is a question from Christian. I don't know if you can click on these or not, Josh. I don't know if you saw that highlight is blue, but so GRC is a career path. Absolutely. So the IT audit one that I mentioned a minute ago would fall under that GRC. It just to take like one giant step back for those who are in the audience that don't know. So GRC is governance, risk, compliance, but it's basically like the policies and the rules on how you're going to run the organization from a security perspective, and how you're going to align with compliance standards that might affect the organization. So I worked in healthcare, so like HIPAA and PCI, because we took credit cards for transactions, right? How is that all handled, and how do you report on it, and how do you audit on it? Excuse me. That's what falls under this area. And like when people need exceptions to things, that's where the governance piece comes into it, right? So like Josh is like, I don't care. I'm going to use I need to run an admin account all the time. This is like a common thing, right? Like sysadmins don't want to use general user accounts. They want to use admin accounts because they don't like to be inconvenienced, right? I'm sorry if I'm offending any sysadmins, but you're probably using an admin account to watch this feed on your Chrome app. So like that's not good. It's like the leading cause of problems is like escalated privilege, right? So that's where governance comes in, and tone at the top, and cybersecurity working with leadership to basically set what the rules are and what the penalties are for not following the rules. So that's what GRC is. I would argue, and I did come up in GRC, I think it's a fantastic path. It's often, GRC gets a bad rap. And I just did a video on Simply Cyber last Monday, a couple days ago, on how to do a risk assessment. I recommend you check it out if you're actually interested in GRC. But it gets a bad rap because like red team and blue team have all sorts of sexy tech, right? Like there's black screens, terminals, there's like cool ASCII art flying around. And in the world of GRC, it's much more Excel spreadsheets, heat maps, like PowerPoints, a lot of talking, a lot of meeting. Like it's not nearly as sexy as cybersecurity, but it's, in my opinion, it's critically important because it's like having an unmoored boat, right? Like you could have the sickest boat ever, but if you don't have a dock to tie it to, good luck, because where are you going? Like you're just kind of like floating around, like checking it out. Like you're not docked to anything, right? So so GRC is important. You can break into it super easy too, by the way, because of audit, because of the reduced expectation on your IT competency to be able to have an entry-level job, right? So doing these blue team and red team, you have to understand tech a little bit more. GRC, there's way more leniency, and we can teach you and train you up on that stack easily, right? The trick is, I would argue, Josh, that it's difficult to find a GRC listed position. It's usually like HR doesn't get it. It's usually kind of muddled in. It might just say security analyst. It may just say compliance. Like it's not cybersecurity GRC. So you have to be a little bit more investigative, and particular when you're looking at positions that are posted. Because if you read the quals and you know what you're looking for, you can tell that it's a GRC position, but it's not always as obvious as the other areas within cybersecurity.
Oh yeah. No, I was working GRC when I was a pilot. I didn't know it. It wasn't until I was studying for CISP that I was like, wait a second. I was in charge of making sure that we recorded all this stuff in this way and stored it here. And when people brought things to me, like we had a way of going about processing like bird strike information, or if someone like crashed their motorcycle and broke their leg. Like I was a safety officer as well as a pilot, and our shop had to report all that stuff up to the Air Force, had to report all that stuff to the powers that be. But I also had to maintain, like, you hurt yourself. Like I've got a record of that, and I've got to keep that safe. Like that's not public information. Bird strike information. Maybe someone had like an engine failure. All this stuff. We don't want that public. We want to contain that. Then add on to that, now we've got, we actually have classified information. Like how are we protecting that? What sort of, what vaults do we have? What kind of door locks do we have? How are we, how often are we scrubbing those codes? Like who's on the list to get access? So was working a lot of that stuff prior to even being a cyber warfare officer. And I think there's a lot of people who are in that position and they're in cyber and they don't even know it. Yeah. And they're not going to show up as cyber, like you said.
There is a lot of transferable skills, like no doubt. And really, like, I was trying to bring up this thing here just to kind of show people, because I feel like this is something, and I see a lot of the questions in the chat. We're going to get to them in a second. But I want to show this really quick. Hopefully this shows up, right? It might be difficult to see. Let me show you all this, right? Oh, that looks terrible. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Yeah, there we go. Check this out. Listen, people, this is the NIST CSF, right? Cybersecurity Framework. I will argue that identify and protect, like, so this is a full life cycle of how you'd manage a cybersecurity program, right? Identify all your assets, protect all of them, and then when crap happens, detect that something happened, deal with it, and get back to normal business operations. That's what we're looking at. GRC really falls under the identify and protect, and blue team is all in the detect, respond, recover. So just looking at that right there, you can see that it's like baked in there. It's just no one says it. Identify and protect is really where that GRC resides. And that to me is why it's so important, because if you do that well, the amount of time that things are happening bad on your network that you need to detect are reduced, right? So no, you cannot like remote in over RDP to your work, like to your like office computer. Like either go home, get on a VPN, like whatever, but just don't do something silly like that. So Anyways, I could go on and on. I do want to get, I know this is your show, Josh, but I see some really great questions in here. And I think maybe we just do like a quick little rapid fire, like 30-second responses to some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, let's do this, Josh, if it's okay. Read the question, one quick point you, and then we'll move on to the next one, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, cool. So Jackson, who I know Jackson quite well, Jackson says, I'm a sophomore in college and he has his Net Plus and Sec Plus by next winter. What should his next steps be? My idea would be begin to look for an internship. If you got an internship, as you exit college, you're going to be rocking and rolling. A lot of people looking for entry-level jobs need to have a Sec Plus, or we advise them to get a Sec Plus. So I think an internship should be what you're looking for. Josh?
Yeah, internship. I always also believe in continual education. So after Sec Plus, you start deciding which direction you want to go. Do you want to be an analyst? CISA might be a good one, CYSA, or EJPT is a next one that you could point to. You could get that either way. You could get that even if you don't want to get into pen testing, because it's going to explain a lot of things that you could use if you're a blue teamer. You could use if you're trying to understand GRC. It's just good knowledge, and it's pen testing students free, and the cert's cheap. So I would knock that out just because it's cheap, it's free, it's easy, it's good quality stuff, and it'll move you forward.
Yeah, and
unless you've got something better.
Yeah, and even if you don't go red team, it's still good on your resume, especially when you're junior. The bigger the bird shot, the better. All right, next question here. We have ES saying, hey, starting SOC analyst 1 in 2 weeks. By the way, congratulations, ES. Happy to see that. He's a data analyst. He's got SecNet and CEH. He's got ticketing system and SIMS. What should he familiarize himself with before starting? Okay, so if I'm going to give you one thing, they're probably going to teach you whatever tech stack they have there, ES. So you don't sweat that. What I would suggest, and is going to give you a huge, like, oh, look at this guy. This guy's got something cooking here. Check out MITRE ATT&CK framework and look at it and understand what's going on there. That is going to give you a significant advantage. Okay, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. Go to FireEye, pull up as many reports on APTs as you can. Go to MITRE, pull up the different APTs on the Navigator, and and just try to understand, what are we defending? How are we defending? What tools are being used against us? Because you're going to see things, and depending on what alerts you get on your SIEM, you're going to be expected to either start up incident responses or hit some things yourself. And understanding where the attacker is coming from, what tactics, techniques, and procedures they're using is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I know I said like 15 seconds each. I just want to say one other thing. Be cognizant, be self-aware, ES, of mental health. I know it gets a crappy stigma in the US, but SOC analysts burn out, and it's not a coincidence that SOC analysts burn out. So be sure to go hard, do your job well, but be cognizant of mental health. Okay, don't burn yourself out too sharp. Okay, all right. Yeah. Shauna B, friend of the show, always attending the live streams and engaging with me on Discord. Found a job for an entry-level IT auditor that wanted a CISP and a master's. Is that normal? I would say no. Entry level, this is ridiculous. So CISSP requires 5 years of cybersecurity experience. So to say entry level is crap. So the answer is no, it's not normal. What I will say is this is one of those situations where the hiring manager probably went to HR and said, I need an entry-level IT auditor. It's a cybersecurity position. The IT manager copy and pasted from the last cybersecurity role and just pasted it in there, changed the title to entry-level IT auditor, and submitted it with no cognizant that CISP is a 5-year thing. Maybe should have caught master's degree, but this is ridiculous. But I would still encourage you to apply. Like someone wrote it in the comments earlier, apply everywhere. Don't think. Joe Hudson, a friend of mine and friend of the show, cybersecurity recruiter, said something really interesting on LinkedIn the other day. He said, when I met my wife, if she said, oh, hey, like if you want to date me eventually to be my husband, I need you to like be proficient at cooking, be proficient at like have 10 years of like fixing lawnmowers and stuff like that. Like all the things that like she would expect her husband to do now. Like, would he be like, should he not even apply and date her? No, like he met some of the things that she would have wanted, right? Must be able to dance, must be able to like crack a dad joke or whatever. Like, so don't be intimidated by a lack of hitting all the marks, right? Entry level is entry level. So I would recommend you apply and try to get to the hiring manager. Go, Josh.
Yeah. So CISP, yeah, the minimum requirement is 5 years, but there's 8 domains in CISP, and you have to have experience in all of them, from applications to agile framework to physical security to GRC. So it's not entry level at all. It's not an entry level cert. And maybe this was entry level for that company. Maybe they were looking for a junior auditor and they didn't know how to say it. And maybe they're doing high-end stuff and they're gonna pay like upwards of 150 grand. For that, that's what someone with a CISP would be looking for, is that higher thing. That's not an entry-level job. And anyone who fits that, a master's degree in a CISP, like if they're not going to be paying, they're not going to be able to pay entry level for that guy.
Yeah.
So should you, if you're interested in that role, should you apply for it? Yeah, you should. And you should write a cover letter saying, look, I don't have my CISP and I don't have a master's degree. What I do have is understanding of this, that, and the other, and I want to work for this company because of that. And why? Why do you need a cover letter that says these things? Because that's what people will actually read. The system will go through your resume and pop things and list you and put you in their what do they call it, candidate system?
Yeah, it's like a scan thing.
Yeah, but your cover letter will actually get read. And so that can stand out. If you say like, hey, I've been studying this and I've been working on that and I understand that you guys are handling this sort of information, and I think that is crucial to the cybersecurity framework for the whole country and the world right now. PCIe is huge. If zero trust is huge, and that's something you're into, and that's what you think they're going to be dealing with, then you've looked into it and you understand it and you can speak to it, put that in there. Because truth be told, the hiring manager is going to read those and be like, I like this guy.
Yeah, the cover letter gives you a chance to like insert your personality, right? Like who you are, and yeah, absolutely. I just want to kind of jump real quick back here to some of our Twitch followers. The Twitch, I don't give Twitch as much love as I should, but so Twitch, this is from a little while ago when we were talking about the importance of networking in the hidden job market. But I do want to point out here. So it sounds like Just Cyber Harder is saying that, this person is making efforts to make connections, but it's hard. You can just say like connect. You can do that. But I would say like you have to network, right? So like there's 25 people in this live stream right now. You can type in the comments and say what's up, or like people are writing questions, right, and saying things like, oh, like, hey, that's a spot on thing, or like I see people answering other people's questions. You are networking right now. When you're done with the stream, go to LinkedIn and put that person's name in and connect with them. You've already established a connection. Just make it formal and do the LinkedIn thing, right? So it's not about just like dumping numbers. I mean, if you want, you can pay like groups, international groups, and they'll give you 10,000 LinkedIn connections, but they're completely worthless, right? So it's not about the money. I mean, money, I meant the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's about the quality, right? So connect with me. If you're not connected with me, connect with me. Connect with Josh, right? Yeah. Like we are here for the community. So that would be idea one, Just Cyber Harder. And then idea two is engage in the chats, right? So like, someone posts something or you do something awesome, post about it. You get a cert, post about it. You do a lab, post about it. You see something cool that I do cool stuff occasionally. Ask me, hey, what is this? Or like, I did something similar. I see you use this honeypot and I've tried this honeypot. Like, do you know any difference between the two? Have an engaging conversation. People will see it and I guarantee you they will connect you. I get connection requests all the time, and I accept all of them. So that's how I would suggest you could beef up that network pool, because when you do that, you'll start seeing more quality cyber-related material. Your feed will be almost curated for you, and it'll just be more valuable, especially when you start posting things like I'm looking for a job, or people are like, I have a need for a job. And then I'd also encourage you, again, if you're trying to build up your LinkedIn network, go to Discord. There's there's a significant amount of quality cybersecurity Discords, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get in there, you can network with people, and then you link in back to them, right? So think of like you meet someone at a bar, or you meet someone at a conference, or you meet someone at a library or sporting event or whatever, and you're talking, you're doing it there. But in order to galvanize the relationship, use LinkedIn to memorialize it, right? That's what I would recommend for beefing up that connection thing. Josh, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so this is huge. I've recently gained like 400 connections the last 2 weeks, and it's because I apparently put out things on LinkedIn that people were interested in. Even if my wife thought it was not great, a lot of other people resonated with it, and I don't get anything out of this. Like, we're not getting any revenue from these streams right here. We're trying to get information out for you guys, and we've got a brand, and we're producing value. Just Cyber Harder, I see you on streams often. I saw you last night on Neil's, I think. Engage, put yourself out there, and add value to the community.
Yeah.
If someone is looking for a position and they're like, you know what, I keep seeing Just Cyber Harder, whatever your actual name, on LinkedIn, I keep seeing his posts, and he talks about this, and he's speaking to, whatever it is. I like pen testing. I like teaching students. That's what I post about. If you like pen testing, like, are you doing write-ups for Try Hack Me rooms and Hack the Box rooms? And are you writing about like what certs you're going after? Are you in Discord cohorts for those things? Are you sharing GitHub repos and tools? Are you teaching people how to use PowerShell Empire? Things like that. If you're creating value, people will find you and will want to hire you. And that's even better when you are just out there and someone's like, hey, I saw you, I saw your posts, I like what you're doing, and I would like to interview you. That happens. I just had one of those last week.
Yeah.
How did Jerry, you know people, that's how you got that job, right? You didn't apply. Someone asked you if you would.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know a couple stories. I'm not going to name names right now, but I mean, there's ongoing things right now where like I reached out to someone. So someone posted on LinkedIn, and I think he's actually watching right now. Someone posted on LinkedIn something a little while ago, and it was a really well-informed flow chart of how, like, what is available for Red Team Labs, right? And I was like, oh, thanks for doing all this hard work. I'll just make a video for Simply Cyber on each of these. And I did it. But I reached out to this individual and I said, hey, thanks for doing this. Here's what I'm doing with Simply Cyber. Thanks a lot. And he's like, oh, that's cool. Like, can I help? And then we started collaborating. We ended up doing some other projects together. And, one thing's led to another. And he may get a job, that like I have some, it's not like I gave it to him or something like that. But like, just the networking that started from something so innocent and so constructive is let's work on this together. You develop that bond, and then things kind of blossom and you find out about stuff. It happens all the time. The thing is, you can't manufacture it, right? You can't find it. Here's the thing. Do not do this. Do not do this. You can't find a job that you want and then find someone who works at the company and then try to like befriend them and manufacture it. That is not going to work. It's going to smell immediately, and it's just don't do that, right?
And people talk.
Yeah, it's a small community. You will definitely
get talked about, and it won't be good, and that's just not what you're looking for at all.
Yeah. So don't do that. But just, I mean, it sucks because it's like a plant. Like you don't just put water on, all of a sudden you got a tree, right? Like you have to nurture it. You have to treat it, and your crops will yield fruit, right? You got to believe me on this, people. Okay. So anyways, yeah. And just while we're talking about that, Shauna had mentioned here, like, how do you connect on LinkedIn without causing attention to your bosses. Andy says, I slowly started dropping my bosses from it. I mean, I would argue like, you don't
My
have to
boss
be
follows
like,
me.
yeah, you don't have to be crazy out there saying like, I'm looking for work. But I mean, I can't imagine, like, hey, I'm taking an interest in this community. I'm doing some labs. Like I'm engaging with the community. Like, what's your problem? Like,
There's no
and by the way, I don't know how many like employers are like spending their off hours scouring LinkedIn looking for the activity of their employees to see if they're up to no good, right? I mean, you might have some psychotic people, but for the most part, it's not that crazy. So we have so many questions. So that's the lightning round, Josh. I hope you enjoyed it. I do want to share a personal story. I know you had a million questions for me, but this is something that when you asked to interview me about my career journey, I had a real personal story that I wanted to share with this audience because I hope it brings you some insight and some peace of kind of like, sometimes crap happens, right? So you would ask me about my first job, but you asked me about my first cyber job and kind of how I got into the field, right? So for those of you who weren't on stream earlier, my first job was a software engineer job, right? And when I graduated in the early 2000s, for those of you who were not old enough to be cognizant of what was going on in the world, like there was a massive push to outsource software development jobs overseas, right? Like it was just, it was cheaper and it looked like a line item and it was easy to just outsource, right? The tech bubble had just burst. California like had a ton of tech ideas, but they needed development, and overseas was going to do it for 50 cents on the dollar. So there was there was a massive drought of tech jobs, right? And or developer jobs. So I graduated, computer science degree from a pretty good university, and I had to go work construction. I lifted bricks for 8 hours a day and carried them where this mason guy yelled at me for 8 hours a day to take these bricks and like mix cement. I will say that I got shredded, which is not like really my body type, but I basically went to the gym for 8 hours a day. So fast forward a couple months, it was a hard summer. I was making dirt money, pissed because I had a computer science degree that I was in the hole like $50,000 for. The student loans were going to come due. And I find this job as a software engineer, small company, like 40-person company. They had an in-house system that ran their entire business, billing, provisioning. They did like phone service. And the whole thing was built on Perl, like on a LAMP stack, right? Linux, Apache, well, not mod PHP, but Perl, right? So you got a front end, a back end database, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So they had one developer. They wanted two developers because eventually I find out they're going to fire this guy. So I go to the job interview. I'm wearing my suit. I got my sweet resume. I've done all the research, right? So the city it was in, the job it was, the years of experience I didn't have. $40,000 was a completely appropriate salary at the time. 2003, software developer, entry level in a slightly metropolitan area. 40 grand, right? How far we've come, right? So I go to the interview, I just crush it, right? I'm talking to non-tech people. I'm talking to the business leaders. There's three of them there. I'm just killing it. Like, yes, yes, yes. They told me on Friday, the interview's Monday. Have you ever used Perl? I said, no. They're like, well, I'll come in anyways. I read Learning Perl, the O'Reilly book over the weekend, do a lot of labs, do a lot of labs. I come into the interview, I'm like, I know Perl. And they're like, wow, okay. So like, I'm knocking the socks off. I'm feeling great. It gets to the time where they're like, all right, well, we want you. By the way, the owner's like this old guy sitting across the table, doesn't really talk to me the whole time. All right, well, we want you. What's your number? Like, what's your number? And I said, well, I've done analysis on the market, on the job. I've done all this research and I back it up objectively. And I have discovered that a median value salary is $40,000, which I think is completely fair. I'm not even asking beyond median, even though I bring a degree from a esteemed university and like I've got the right initiative and all this stuff. And like the owner leans over at this point, like it's almost like he's in the dark and he leans over and the light like splashes his face open. And he says, listen, I'm going to give you $26,000 and you're going to accept it because you've been working construction for 4 months and you obviously can't find a job. You need this job for experience in the field, and you won't be getting it anywhere else. So consider the $14,000 the cost of experience. And I said, like, can you imagine feeling so vulnerable and so pushed into a corner that, like, literally he's right and it sucks and it's super low emotional quotient. And I said, well, I'll have to think about it. And like, the president called me the next day, a different guy called me. He's like, so what are we doing? I said, well, I'll take it, and I quit a year to the day. I got my 1 year experience and I quit, but I was so just victimized and it sucked. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to be in a position again where I have to take this dude's job offer. And I would be professional. I wouldn't tell him to shove it up his butt, but like, I would also say, like, it's unfortunate. I really don't feel like the position's worth $26,000. Thank you for your time. I don't ever want to be in that position again. And that's part of the reason I've been driven to get all these degrees and work, in the field and do all this. I mean, I love cybersecurity, but to be taken advantage of feels so violating that I said that won't ever happen to me again. But hey, just as a silver lining, I started on Monday. My wife started the following Monday. My group, like, I never met her, right? They're bringing her around. I've been there 1 week. They're bringing her around. They're like, hey, like, we'd like to introduce you to this new hire. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was love struck and I knew I was going to be with her at that moment. I waited a few months to not seem super creepy to tell her that and to begin dating her and such. But yeah, so there is a silver lining to that terrible job. But so that's my story. So sometimes, guys, I'm not saying you should put yourself in a compromising situation, but it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes you got to kind of weigh what the deal is. And for me, I knew I wanted the IT field, and it wasn't that I was doing construction. It's that I knew I wanted to apply my computer science degree. I knew I wanted to work in this field, and it launched, 1,000 ships. But it sucked. It sucked to eat that piece of pie, if you will.
Yeah, and I hear that all the time. My brother got a construction job in college, and guess what he does now? He's a contractor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with his degree. It was the jobs that he could find, and he was like, well, I'll do this until I pay back all my loans. By that time, it was like he had a degree in a construction company, so he was almost running the place, which is where he's at now. So there's too many stories of that. Like, I want the industry to change. I want people in tech to have value from the get-go. And I don't know. Do you feel like you could have walked away and said no and gotten a different job?
Yeah.
Because I had something similar.
Yeah,
I accepted a Python job with almost no Python experience, and then 2 weeks later, got this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have gotten it because I wanted it so bad. Just like I wanted cybersecurity so bad that I took my dog into that business that I had no business walking into. Because if I'm motivated and driven, I'm going to do it. Whatever it is, if I want it bad enough, I'm going to go get it. It just, sometimes the path I took, I didn't have a lot of options at the time. So I probably would have succeeded eventually, but it's just like two crappy paths to pick, wait and continue working construction, or take this job where the owner obviously is already laid out his personality from the first time you met him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear horror stories all the time, and it's sad. I just keep hoping that we can make changes where we are, be the change we want to see in the industry, and help you guys have more value and have more confidence and the ability to say, hey, no, I'm worth this, and maybe build up your portfolio, build up your GitHub repo, build up your Try Hack Me score, make yourself look more valuable and be more valuable and be more confident and say no.
Yeah. And there is so it's kind of funny you're saying that, because you can obviously increase your own value. but it's kind of hard to understand what the current value is, right? So
That's true.
if you're in the audience and you know of anything that maps to this, let me know. I know Robert Half released a IT salary survey report recently, and I'll try to find it while Josh is talking next. But basically, like, so Josh, let's just use me in the story I just gave, right? So you got a computer science degree. Well, let's do an entry-level cybersecurity job. You got a computer science degree, you know a programming language, and you got a Sec Plus, and you're going to work in a metropolitan area. What is fair market value for that, right? Like, people Google that, and like there's a couple sites that do it, but like when you say it's not worth that, like, how do you objectively have that information? Because if you're going to pass on a job that you've already worked so hard to, like, if you've kind of been applying to 1,000 jobs and 50 call you back, and then only 4 don't ghost you after the initial call back, and then you finally get to the offer letter with the one, you've put in so much effort and so much energy. It's exhausting to say, I'm going to go back and start over. You almost want the pain to end. And I get that. But if you know that there's another job out there and what the market value is for that job, and they're offering you half of that, then it's insane. And you can make a rational decision on it. But I feel like there's a gap in like that information. And that's kind of a US thing. I don't know how it is in Europe and stuff, but in the US, it's almost like taboo to talk about your salary, even though
it shouldn't be. I don't know. I came out of the military. You can Google and know exactly this many years of service at this rank, you're getting this paycheck.
Yeah.
You live in this metropolitan area, so you get this additional thing to deal with cost of living. It's black and white. It's spelled out. Everyone can Google it. And I use that. I looked at, okay, so I've got this degree. I've got this years of experience and just general knowledge of stuff. Moving to this area, like, what would I be getting if I was still in the military? And around here, I was like, well, that doesn't seem great. Took that first job that I accepted, being a Python programmer for a contractor down in Virginia, like 2 hours south of here. It's like 70% of what I'm making now. But I was like, I could do that. I could do that for a year. We won't eat into our savings. We won't be going broke. We'll rent. We won't go on vacation for a year, and I'll get that experience, and then we'll go from there. And that was my plan. And I'm so glad I got a different opportunity, because you stuck around for a year. You were like, I got my experience. That means something to people, and I'm going to go use it. And that's, sadly, I think that's why so many of us move so often, is because we're undervalued, and that causes us to not value ourselves. And then you get that experience, and you're like, well, now I've got value, and I can go, I know that I don't want this. So now I've networked, now I've got experience, now I've got this and that and the other, and I can take that and go to another job. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head, man. Like, networking isn't just for you to like find out about job opportunities and for sharing knowledge, which is important, probably the most important thing of the networking bit, but it's also to understand like what the landscape looks like, right? So if you're talking, I talk to people all the time, and it's like, it's really interesting, like, oh, what is SOC analyst like where you are? Like, you're a SOC analyst, like, let's talk about what it is like where you are. Oh, that's interesting. That's different than the way we do it here. And it's not that like you're using a different SIM or you have a different IR playbook. It's like culturally different, or the way it's perceived by the organization. Like, even industries, like, guys, financial industry is way more heavily invested in cyber and has way more tighter run books and stuff like that, as opposed to something like higher education, which has traditionally been lower funded, a little bit looser, a lot more like collaborative open source tools and stuff like that. But if you've only ever worked in higher ed, like, you think that this is normal, like, this is how we solve problems. And then if you were to switch and work in financial, you'd be like, oh my God, this is like, a black and white TV and a color TV. Like, you can't even wrap your head around the difference. right? It's not a clearer picture of black and white. It's a different paradigm altogether.
Yep.
So definitely value in networking there. So we got some comments here. Nonprofits will pay the bottom of the market value spectrum, but the experience is what made me go ahead and accept it for a year and a half. Yes, I'll tell you what. I'm about to talk about this in a book that I'm releasing this fall. Not to plug it, but it's appropriate here. But if you don't have any experience, nonprofits are an awesome way to they're looking for help, right? And we talked to Jackson a little while ago about what should I do? I'm in college, sophomore year. I got some certs. What do I do? We said get an internship. Dude, you don't need to Google internships for cybersecurity. That could work, but in reality, you can manufacture your own, right? Reach out to a nonprofit and say, hey, like I'm a student, or ES in your case, you could sit, like you already got the job, but for anybody watching, you can message a nonprofit and say, hey, I'm a cybersecurity practitioner, or I'm an IT professional, or whatever. I'm moving into cybersecurity, and I would love to help, like your mission. Hopefully you find a nonprofit that aligns to your own personal morals and goals and stuff. So you can say, I'm really interested in your mission. I would love to help out. Can I work with your IT staff to help from a cybersecurity perspective in whatever capacity that is? Maybe you help audit for some standard or grant money that they're trying to get from the government. Maybe you just do like a vulnerability scan of their network and then report the findings. Like whatever it is, it's cybersecurity experience, and that's a great way to manufacture an internship.
Your local government, your city, your county, they probably have like a one-man deep IT cybersecurity CIO. That might be it, depending on where you are in the country. And there's a lot of info there that is held by those government entities. I know, former head of CISA has his own website and Krebs. So Krebs,
Chris Krebs?
Yeah, Chris Krebs. He shared this story. Man, it was last year. He got an alert about some city in Mississippi, and their credentials were out on the black market.
Oh no, you're talking about Brian Krebs. Krebs on security?
Oh yeah, Brian Krebs.
Yeah. Chris Krebs.
Different Krebs.
He's over at SolarWinds now.
Yeah. Krebs on security. So he found this report that they were selling on the dark web some credentials to the local government's IT. Like, I don't know exactly. He called and tried to get a hold of somebody down there and say like, hey, there's credentials for your system that they're selling. You need to like change all of your login passwords and maybe beef up your like multi-factor. And people were like, okay, I'll send you over to the police department. Maybe they'll handle it. And they're like, we'll send you over here. He's like, you know what? I tried everything. I spent like 2 days doing this. Like, I'm out. Eventually, someone got back to him and was like, oh, hey, so-and-so told me through so-and-so that this happened. Thank you. And I'm going to like fix it. And then like a week later, he gets like an email back being like, so we've been attacked. Yeah. They have all of our files. And not only have they encrypted all of our devices and all of our servers, but they're going to sell all of this personal information and credit card information that we hold on all of the residents who pay taxes, pay water bills, maybe like pay library stuff through the county that's held, like all of that. They're going to sell all that information on the dark web unless we pay them like 4 million in Bitcoin. It's like, well, they could have used a nice little free audit from someone who knows some things. Yeah. They could have used someone to go through and like actually change all the passwords for the administrators. They could have used someone who could like beef up their firewalls or throw in an IDS or show them how to set up like an easy SIEM. Man, if someone had sat down and been like, hey, I've heard of Lima Charlie. Let me like set this up for you, and maybe you'll get some alerts that stuff's happening that you're not getting right now because you don't have anything in place. Maybe you could do that. Maybe there's a church. Maybe there's a police department. I get hit up often. I work at the Defense Cyber Crime Center. We teach forensics courses. People are like, so how could I get experience doing forensics? Do what my buddy who teaches does. He goes down to his local sheriff's department and is like, hey, do you guys need help like processing the phones and laptops and all these emails that you've pulled in for this investigation? And they're like, yeah, we have no idea what to do. We just send it off to like the state lab. It's like, well, how long does that take? Like 2-3 years. It's like, well, all right, I'll just bring in my laptop, plug in my stuff, and get cracking, because he teaches it. He knows it. Do you know it? Can you guys run autopsy? Can you run NCASE? You could be a huge help to an investigation where they're stuck with like a phone that they don't know what to do with it. Maybe they can even get in and they don't know what's there.
Yeah.
You could help.
Points. Yeah.
For free. Maybe they'll pay you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. Like if you're trying to get an internship to get that experience, don't focus on is it a paid internship or not. I mean, maybe you're in a situation where you need it to be paid, but I would focus first on trying to get the internship, and then maybe discuss if it's paid or not. I'll tell you, I built an internship program when I was at MUSC, and it was wildly successful. And we insisted that we pay the interns. It wasn't that they had to ask and we were like, oh, I guess we'll pay them. It was, we paid them because then they're employees, then they're staff, then they have to adhere to policy. If you're a volunteer, it's a much different gray area. And by the way, people, you're working in cybersecurity. In the example Josh just mentioned, you're touching evidence. Like getting paid makes you applicable to certain standards and policy that is a good CYA. So don't think of it as like, oh, like I don't want to disrupt the Apple cart and ask for money. Like it's sometimes it's really in the company's interest to pay you themselves, right? It's not doing you a favor. It's covering them legally. So don't go in asking for money, but there's certainly a lot of reason for you to get paid, especially for your work.
And there's a lot that can go in there. You could be 1099, but now you're contractually held to this company. Like you are them, they are you. You can sign an NDA, and things come down the line. And it's like you can't share that. You sign that NDA. You're part of this company. Like you're expected to be here. And I know it was an internship, but like now you're here. You're part of it. You gain the experience. You gain this, but you're in our circle of trust, and they can go both ways. That's, hey, I worked for these guys, check. And you benefit them. I have an MBA. I've yet to get a degree in cybersecurity. But I do understand business, and truth be told, there's a lot of like budgeting and, hey, we don't have room in the budget for another person. But if you can't take on a new person and maybe like eat what, 80 grand of total cost for a new employee, and all of those things over the course of a year, I don't know, you probably have a close to failing business.
Yeah. Well, and like another thing that I preach, it'll be in my book out in the fall. So another thing that I preach is like, if you want to get that experience, like whether you're the student or you're the trainer or you're the help desk person, like if you already work at an organization and there's a cybersecurity office at the organization, reach out to them. You work for the same company. Why wouldn't they respond to your email? If you tell them that you're interested in helping them, it doesn't have to be, I want your job. It has to be, or it could be as simple as, hey, I work on the help desk. Like, is there anything I can do to help you guys? Like, do you guys want to train me on how to enroll people in two-factor authentication? That way, when someone calls, I don't just push a ticket to you. I help them myself. Can I do password resets? Whatever, right? If you start developing that network and networking and just showing value, showing capability, showing interest and initiative, I assure you, when they have a job or they have spillover and they can't get to a certain task, they're going to ask you to help them. And if they have a job, they might even ask you first. Hashtag hidden job market that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Like they will ask you if you're interested in the job before they post it, just because it's easier. And you've already established your interest. You've already established everything. And you can even, we had a question in the chat here about mentorship, right? Like if you start helping cyber people, you're going to get a feel for who they are as people. And, you know, a lot of cyber people are very inclusive. So if you're helping me do my job and achieve my office's mission, and you ask me for guidance on how to get into cybersecurity, I'm going to tell you. I might even tell you exactly how to get into cybersecurity at our business. Oh, hey, we're about to roll out like Phantom SOAR, right? Phantom is like the security orchestration tool that Splunk offers, right? It's like new or whatever. We're about to roll this out. Man, if you knew SOAR, I mean, if you knew Phantom, that would be cool. That would be really interesting. Okay, so then go get some training or go watch some videos or do something. Get some Phantom experience. And then you're like, hey, I know Phantom, or like they're talking about, you're like, I got it, right? Boom. Like we need to hire someone to run the Phantom, right? SOARs don't run themselves. I know it says automation, but it requires a human. Like that's the great. Someone's
got to aim it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of opportunity. You got to think a little bit more openly about how to get into cyber. You can't just think like, here's a job and I need to walk on this straight line to get to the job. There's a lot of fluidity and dynamic elements to breaking in, right? I mean, obviously you can go the traditional straight path. That's worked for me, but in today's market, there's just so much different opportunities, so many different ways to break in. And I want everybody on this call, if they don't already work in cyber, I want you in cyber. And I wanted to ask Andy, if Andy's still here. This was a question from a little while ago, almost an hour ago, but it's a good one because I see it often, right? This individual, Andy, is 20 years, had a career in construction and IT project management, wants to get into cyber PM. Any advice for this unconventional path? Well, first I'd challenge you, Andy, to call it unconventional. You got 20 years of doing construction, right? Which, yeah, we're not putting boards together with nails in cyber, but when you run a project, you're doing planning, you're doing forecast, like budgeting, you have a schedule, you got human resources, you execute, you have milestones. Like build a building or roll out Phantom, right? Like or re-engineer identity and identity and access management. It's the same building blocks and same kind of PM skill set. So I'd actually argue that it's not unconventional. I think you would just need to, what I would advise in this situation, because you have that IT project management experience, is look at your resume, highlight the IT related stuff that might have some element of cyber. So like identity and access management, maybe you rolled out like MFA, or you rolled out, single sign-on or SAML authentication or something like that, or you moved to Azure, right? So like infrastructure moves to Azure. It's not really a cybersecurity thing, but there's cybersecurity involved in it, right? So
it's all the same.
Yeah,
it's all information.
I think if you this particular individual, Andy, I think really you just need to like adjust your resume a little bit. You may already kind of be there.
Yeah. Just find the job that you want to move to, and if they're in a certain technology, if they are in a certain industry, just learn a little bit about that so that you can speak to it. Like if you know construction, okay, you need framers and you need the concrete guys, you need siders, you need plumbers and electricians, all of that. Okay, cool. What does that look like in cyber? Like who are your vendors? Who are your users? Who are your stakeholders? If you identify all those people, okay, I know how to work that. I know how to work the timetable. We need this project by this time and it's going to cost this much. How do we schedule all the pieces to get from here to there?
Boom.
Now you just need to learn the lingo and what those things actually mean.
Yeah, and you can pick it up on the way. People, I would argue that like people, especially in cyber, are willing to help. They're not like, they have a very low threshold for bullshit, right? So if you pretend you know what you're talking about, it's not going to go well. But if you are like, we keep talking about DNS, guys. What's DNS? Like, I'll happily explain DNS to you. If you try to tell me DNS has to do with like this is terrible. Like I'm on the fly, but like the application layer or something like it's not going to work, right? I'm going to know that you're faking. So Andy actually followed up a little later on, and while we're helping Andy here, 6 to 12 month contracts, getting hit by recruiters. And Stefan, who's in the audience too, actually mentioned this to me too. So I have never done these 6 to 12 month things. I do want to caution you that I have seen a lot of fraudulent postings around these kind of short-term gigs. I don't entirely understand if it's like it's just a ruse where they're trying to get you to like send your like personal information as part of like the screening, or if it's like, you know, they're interviewing for you for one job, but in like a pen testing job, and then they tell you that like they have a contract with a company, but in reality, you're just attacking a company without any real contract in place. I've heard some shady stuff around these things. I don't want to totally taint all of these 6 to 12 months things, but I would caution you, there's a lot of full-time job opportunities out there. So, you know, I wouldn't say settle for 6 to 12 months, but if you're in a tough situation, it's worth investigating, but very, very strongly encourage doing your due diligence and vetting these groups before you engage in any transfer of personal information or, you know, kind of behavior that would be an issue if it wasn't legally authorized.
I've heard of some of this. I have a buddy who does aircraft maintenance, or he used to, and he would take a 12 or 24 or 36 month contract, and it paid really well. Like,
all right, so there
I
are
knew how to
legit
well like him.
opportunities out there.
But yeah, I'd say do your due diligence. And truth be told, like if it pays really well and you do it for a year, and then hey, now you've got experience. Like that's the better version of that young Jerry story, you know.
So it sounds like Andy's had like a little from column A and a little from column B. So that's good. I'm glad. Good job. Oh, and just a shout out to Joe Hudson, friend of the show. It looks like Joe helped Andy get that resume sorted out. So I think you're well on your way, Andy. And totally pumped for you. Please stay in touch with me. I'd love to kind of celebrate your successes, as you obviously are going to have them in the near term. So
I'd love to
Josh,
do
yeah.
Another shout out, Stefan Semmelroth. He's the guy who got me started, and he was the one who made me feel comfortable taking that like $80,000 a year job, because I was in the location. If I could get experience in Python, knowing what I know about cybersecurity, if I could get that hands-on software experience, he was working stuff for me. Even after I got this job, he was working stuff for me. I had like 5 interviews last year that I thought I wanted to go into. They were just really software heavy. And while I can do some coding, I just don't have that foundation, that same foundation that you would need if that's what you're doing 24/7. And it took me a few interviews to realize, like, yeah, I can't just hack leak code for you all day long. And that's fine. But he's got some great videos on his site. He's been on Cyberspatial, shared a lot of, he's a recruiter, and he's got a Army cyber background. And so he understands what, just like Joe, what companies are looking for, what clients look like, and what can get you there. So I'd suggest looking at his LinkedIn and his YouTube, as well as Joe's, to see what are the actual companies that are hiring, what are they doing? Because you've hired some people, Jerry, and I've gotten a job. I've gotten hired for 2 jobs. So that's my depth of experience. Joe handles how many? Probably hundreds of clients a year.
Yeah, more than yeah. Like,
and that's just so many interactions with HR and hiring managers and people who are applying for jobs and resumes, and that's the sort of thing you can't get unless you know a recruiter. And so, hey, Joe's put his stuff out there. Stefan's put his stuff out there. Like, find them. That is gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so many ways to do it, and if nothing comes of it, then nothing comes of it. But there's no negative consequence, right? There's no downside to taking a run at it. Kimura here says, you can't let not having experience keep you from talking to people and putting yourself out there. 100% agree with Kimura there. And I do resonate, just as a little fun side thing. I do resonate with Josh. I mean, I was a software engineer. I was better at it back in the day, but nowadays, you don't need to be a programmer to be successful in cybersecurity. You should be able to read it eventually.
It helps.
It helps. You don't need to be a programmer, but I'm probably a lot like Josh, where like this is me writing a program. Like it will drive, but it is certainly not a fancy looking nice pickup. It's kind of cobbled together from GitHub and Expert Exchange or whatever they call it now.
Stack Overflow.
Stack Overflow. Yeah, Expert Exchange. Dating myself here. But
yeah.
So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, it's so true. Until you're just like grinding out the code yourself or making the suggestions on Stack Overflow, like that's what we're all doing. It's just like, let's piece it together until it makes sense. Okay, now I understand why it works, how it works.
Yeah.
Let me build it out.
Gladiator. Absolutely, Christian. Yeah. So this has been a great show. We're just at almost an hour and a half, Josh. I don't know if you had another question kind of to wrap up the show. I've had a wonderful time. I know, I love the audience's participation. You guys have been fantastic. Even the people lurking out there who have been with us since the show went live. I really, really appreciate and just thank you so much for being part of this experience.
Hey, Kev. Yeah, this was amazing. Everything that I had planned to ask you, I've asked you, or we've talked about.
Okay, perfect.
I definitely would love to do this again. Doesn't need to be soon, but let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just tease out a couple of things so people know. So if you guys are interested, I do shows every Monday that are produced shows. So they're filmed, and I do B-roll and edits and music and all that other stuff. So if you have seen my shows, you know what those are. Those are Mondays. So I'm not going to tease those. Just check out the channel, Simply Cyber. I do have a couple live streams. I'm on a brand new computer, so I don't have the marketing promos and stuff. But I'll just tell you, on May 6th, I'm actually working. I'm going to have John Helmus and Clint Bernigan. I think I'm screwing up his last name, but John Helmus, who's an OSCP, very, very senior pen tester, super, super accomplished, coming on the show. And then Clint, who happens to be an ICS security expert, but that's not why we're bringing him here. He is the creator and lead developer for a simulation called Threat Gen Red versus Blue. And basically what it is a turn-based kind of RPG simulation of securing an industrial control system at an energy plant. So you're basically dropped in and you've got an energy plant when you've got ICS and PLCs and SCADA systems. You've got Exchange, Active Directory. You've got remote VPN. You've got a complete enterprise network, right, people? Now, here's the best part. You might be saying, why is John going to be there? John's an OSCP. John's a professional attacker. The simulation allows you to either be red, the attacker, or be blue, the defender. And I've done the defense one on the live stream a while ago. And this one's been in the talks for a little while. But we're going to do the red team this time. I'm going to basically be smart hands. John's going to be leading the attack. This guy leads pen tests Fortune 100 pen tests normally. He's going to be leading the attack. We've got the creator of the system and the lead developer who's going to be live streaming with us so we can talk about what is this, or what was your thinking when you did this, or you can kind of tease it and stuff like that. I will be giving away, this is cool, it's a Steam game. I think it's $30. I bought it last year. I can't remember. They've been providing updates. I told them I wanted to do this. They said, can we send our creator, and can we give you 10 free licenses for the game to give away to people in the audience? I said, sure, yeah, let's do that. So I'll be raffling off 10 licenses to the game live during it. I don't know how the raffle is going to happen. It won't be overly complicated. But we've had 40 people in the live stream today. So if we get that number, then you've got a 25% chance of getting a license to this game for nothing other than being there and having fun with us. Okay. So that's going to be May 6th. check my LinkedIn and Simply Cyber YouTube channel. Like, it'll all be promoted there, and you can find it. If not, just message me and I'll send you a link. And then the second one, this one's huge. This is something I'm working with Josh and several other people. I'm super pumped about this one. If you are military, if you're not military, you could still come along, but I don't know if it'll have the same value. If you're military, if you're a veteran, if you're currently serving and you're about to get out, if you know someone, your spouse, your son, your daughter, your cousin, whatever, who is military, I am doing it's turned into like a summit. It was going to be one produced video, then it turned into a live stream with one person. Now I'm going to have 6 speakers. I'm going to have tons of like actionable, like resources that you can go take advantage of. I'm going to have people who can, I'm going to have one guy there. Oh, by the way, everybody except me, I got to be there. It's my show. Everybody's going to be former military, right? So we got an Army guy who is an expert at tuning up resumes to go from MOS and military service into civilian speak. So we're going to get your resumes tuned up. We've got Josh and with me, who's going to be there, and Tom Moore. And we're going to be talking about how, using an aptitude test that they already have that you can take for free, how you can identify what job in cybersecurity you actually want. So before you even lace up your shoes and stretch to take the race on, you'll know which direction to run in. It's fantastic. I'm super pumped for that. We've got 4 other speakers. All different branches are represented. Male, female. We've got like a really diverse panel. I'm super pumped. We're going to be covering resources on how you Josh and I have been telling you, you need to network. You need to network.
Okay.
But we're actually going to have a guy who has an entire platform that's free, that's built just for military people who are in cyber, to talk with people who are not in cyber, to help them network and get jobs in cyber. Like, this thing it's like Thanksgiving dinner cyber series. Like, I'm going to be just shoveling as much value into your face as you can possibly eat. And then I'll give you a to-go bag because I want you to take it all with you. Okay. That the date for that hasn't been set yet. It's going to be like May or June. I'm just starting a new job. I'm trying to pin everything down. So please give me some grace with getting that, because it is a major effort with like a bunch of different people, and it's much more complicated than my other live streams. So those are the 2 things that I wanted to tease to you guys. I hope you guys are there. This has been so much fun. Josh, thanks for taking over. You've been very gentle with Simply Cyber. You're giving it back to me in a pristine condition. So thank you for not, running rough on it.
Gladly.
Yeah. All right. So Josh, if anyone wants to connect with you, where should they reach out?
So I'm on LinkedIn. Maybe several of you know me from there. Joshua C. Mason. I'm also Joshua17SC at YouTube, at Twitter, at GitHub, on Discord. Where else am I? Yeah, all those places.
Yeah.
It's always the same, Joshua17SC.
Yeah, grab you on LinkedIn or Twitter and then spider out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
And
okay.
You send me a connection on LinkedIn, and I'm gonna hit connect. That's
my
MO.
How I operate too.
Oh.
Yeah, in cyber case, you never went into the veteran project, and I can't wait for that. It's like 10 minutes later. So hopefully what I just covered answers all that for you.
I'll post about it.
What's that?
I said I'll post about a bunch of that stuff. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's going to be
know.
good.
It's where I came from. It's what I know. It's where I got most of my resources. And so I just pass along what I know, which is how I got why we're talking.
We got connected. Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. I hope you took something from this live stream that you can take action on and, just either improve your current cybersecurity career or get what the skills you need to break in and come help Josh and I secure all the things, right?
Yep. Let's take down cybercrime.
All right, everybody. Until next time, stay secure.